Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of Health Talks with Dr. Trinh. The one show, maybe the only show, that tries to take complicated medical issues of today, the ones that are burning on all our brains, talk about them in simple terms so we can take some simple steps, making our lives better here. Health Talks with Dr. Trinh starts right now. Hey, Dr. Trinh, how are you today?
I am good. I'm good. And here we are, another Thursday.
Another Thursday. Well, as you can see, I took your advice on social distancing to a new level. We launched yesterday. I know they couldn't get the NASA astronauts up, but we were able to get the OC Talk radio capsule. We're now circling the Earth, and we're broadcasting you live from space, as you can see here.
Very cool. Are we on Facebook Live right now?
Oh, let's get you on Facebook Live. No, let's do that here. So while you let's have you start talking here, and let me get you on while we're doing this here.
Cool.
So how are you handling the shelter in place stuff here?
Good. It's lots of I'm waiting to go to a restaurant to sit down, actually.
Really? And that's part of what we're going to talk about here today. You know, it seems like they're ready in California here to start reopening. They've already been doing it in other places around the country here. And the question is, to mask or not to mask? That is the question here today here. To mask or not to mask? When did putting a mask on have a political implication to it? How did this get turned into another political football?
It's definitely something wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. I'll give you a perfect example here. Are we on Facebook now? We should be on Facebook now here, I think.
Let me see. Yes, we're on.
So
live.
Welcome to everybody who's tuning in today here. We're our Health Talks with Dr. Trinh. As I said, I'm circling the globe here. I'm taking social distancing to a new height here. And the question today that everybody keeps asking me is, to mask or not to mask? That is the question. I went to... it was Memorial Day weekend this past weekend, and so I thought, well, I'll get out a little bit. I'm like a groundhog. I'll stick my head out, look around the hole, and see how many more weeks of winter are left here. And I was very upset when I came home. Almost nobody had a mask on. I went to the gas pump. People are pumping all around me, no mask, walking, right? Teenagers are congregated at places that up by the restaurants. People are walking in and out of stores. I went up to Home Depot. A few more people had masks, but nobody's social distance. They made you stand in line to get in, but everybody was crowded, one against the other, anxious. I got to go. I got to get there. And I thought, did we not learn anything in the last 2 months? Was it all for naught?
It's it's some of it is politics related.
Yeah. In other words, it's like the, I don't know if people remember this analogy, but the Bloods and the Crips, the two gangs up in South Central LA that I think still fighting it out, but fought for decades. And they distinguished themselves by the colors they wore. If you wore red and I wore blue, we were instant enemies. And we've carried that over now into this world of community spread. There are those that are defiantly saying, I am never going to wear a mask. Ain't no way. And I'm proud. And so that shows I'm with the president or with somebody here. And others are saying, no, this is crazy. I'm going to wear a mask. It's not about my health or your health. It's about my freedom, and you can't tell me what to do. And so we're like little kids. I won't.
Yeah, somehow we have... and not everyone does this.
No.
Because there's a lot of masking when I go to Costco, and there are shops and stores that do require, and restaurants that require some masking.
Yes, and I think if they didn't, I don't think people would. I think the couple stores I went to, they're practicing this. They want to make their customers feel safe, but the customers themselves seem to say, I'm not going to get it, and I either don't believe in this, or I don't want to do it, or it's all a hoax, or I don't know. was completely wrong. I thought mask would be de rigueur, to use a French term here. I thought everybody would, it would be cool to wear a mask. I thought everybody would be like at Halloween, everybody loves to dress up. So I thought we'd all have these crazy masks. You know, I have mine sitting here. I was trying to get something silly on it or whatever here.
Nice,
And,
nice.
and I thought, why don't we make this a fun thing? Celebrities all have goofy pictures on them. The president would have MAGA on it. Everybody would have something, and we'd use the mask to as a fashion
Right.
statement, as a fun statement, maybe as a political statement. But I didn't know that people wouldn't want to wear them at all, not for any scientific reason, just to make a point.
Yes, there are different types of mask. Do you know the difference between like an N95 mask versus a surgical mask
I don't.
versus a mask that's homemade, like by the public?
Right, I had one of those earlier. Yeah, so I have all three versions here to talk about today. Here I have originally the do-it-yourself new napkin mask here that I tried making with some rubber bands, not very successfully. Then
Right,
I had
right.
the somebody who could sew, just put some cloth on.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
That was a nice one. And then I actually through Amazon finally purchased one of these N95, and this one has a if I can pull it out here, but it has a little filter in it that you can slip in and out.
How much is that mask, by the way, that you bought on Amazon?
I think it was about $15 or $20. This is back when.
15 to 20 bucks for one mask?
Yeah, well, this one supposedly is washable. I didn't put the little thing in there, but there's a little
Wow.
pocket
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
can put a little extra carbon filter in there for
Right.
it here. So I thought, yeah, $15 for something. They probably made them 15 cents to make this here, but I thought this would be, everybody would find their own comfort level, and we would all be laughing, and we'd make fun of this thing, and it would just be one minor inconvenience. Because think about this, folks. If we all wore a mask to protect ourselves, and to protect others and to protect ourselves, the exhale and the inhale, and if we washed our hands and kept 6 feet apart, those three simple little things, we probably could reopen the whole country and go about our daily lives with this minor inconvenience for the next 6 months, year, however it longs to get herd immunity, either artificially
Right,
through a
right.
vaccine or because everybody gets sick. We could go about our daily lives again, which is what everybody wants. But because we're not willing to even do that, many aren't willing to do that, some, that's going to mean a prolonged problem.
It yes, yes, you are right. Um, the cool thing I think is that probably 2 months ago, if I were to walk into Costco 2 months ago
Hmm.
and had a mask on, folks will look at me like really
Yes,
strange.
right.
Now, if I walk into Costco without a mask, everyone will look at me strange.
And I thought people would do the same if you walked into Costco without a mask. People would give you that kind of dirty look, like, "What are you doing? My children are here. I've got a sick grandparent at home. Why are you? I don't care
Stop
what you
that.
want to do, but you're risking my life here too, and others."
Yeah.
Did you
It
see
all be-
the? I'm sorry. Did you see the governor of North Dakota, a very conservative Republican,
Mhm.
went on television last week, and he literally started crying. He broke down a little bit, and he got so emotional. He said, "This is not about politics. Don't assume that just because somebody has a mask on, they're trying to make a political statement. They might have a sick child at home. They might have asthma, and by you not only respecting their things, but doing what this yourself, you show support for them. You show kindness. You show care for others."
Right. I I saw some video that was being passed around, apparently by I'm trying to remember who the speaker was, but it was it was a neurosurgeon, I think,
Hmm.
who made a statement that wearing a mask is dangerous for your health.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've
and I
heard
was
that. I
like,
didn't
wow.
see it, but yeah.
yeah, and it's one of these viral things that's going around. Um, but if that's the case, if that's true, then we are purposely, killing off our nurses and doctors in every hospital in the
Yeah,
world because they're all
exactly.
wearing masks.
Exactly.
When
So explain to me the psychological. I know you're not a psychologist, but let's all play amateur psychologists here for a minute.
right.
What is it that makes people want to defy this idea?
I
Is it,
think I
and
think
I,
as Americans,
okay,
we don't like being told what to do.
boy, that's
Number
the
one.
truth, right? Right.
Number two, we don't like being told what to do specifically by our government.
Yes, right.
It's
They
it's
can't
just
tell me I'm an American, I can do anything I want, it's freedom, you know.
right. And I get that, right? I totally get that, especially if I'm on the other side of the political view,
Yeah,
right? If let's say the Republicans are in charge and I'm a Democrat,
right,
I don't want to listen to the Republicans. Vice versa. If the
right,
Democrats are in charge and I'm a Republican, I don't trust the government, right?
right.
So if the other side of your political view is in charge, obviously it increases even more distrust.
Hmm.
Uh, and so if the government is saying you should wear a mask, then my first inclination is hell no, right?
Yeah, right.
Um, why should I wear a mask, especially from the other side telling me this? And so oftentimes that comes into view, and it kind of, and then what we do is we go online and we look for we on the internet you can search for anything you want
Right,
to support your view, right?
right.
And what's scary is we have these conclusions, and then we go and we look for data to support our conclusions,
Exactly.
as opposed to having the data lead us to our conclusion.
Yes, right,
We draw the conclusion first, and then we look for the data,
right,
right? And then we ignore the other stuff, the other data
right,
that we don't agree with, right? And that
right.
happens all the time. And it's just human nature sometimes. So
So how do we
it,
turn this around? How do we have a forum here today? People are tuned in. Thank you all for joining us. Many people are saying, "Hey, Doc, morning, Doc."
oh,
What do you all think out there? Are you wearing your mask?
yeah, are
Um,
you guys wearing masks? Don't wear masks? I can see you guys on at least on the Health Talks Without the Trend Facebook group.
yeah, I'd love to hear from people because I was very shocked and somewhat I was angry. I came back and I said, "This is crazy." People are. I get that we were cooped up and we want to get out, but with this couple minor adjustments, a mask, keep some distance, and wash your hands, we can go about our daily lives and learn to live with this thing until we can get past it, and we can limit the number of people that have to get sick and die. If we don't do these things, it's going to get worse again. It's going to spike up. Everybody knows it. We all know it. And people seem to think that's just the way it is. I'm not going to give an inch. So if 100,000 more people have to die, so be it.
Yeah. Well, Sherry says yes. Kent says no. Melissa says, I think part of the issue is conflicting information coming out from the start. Initially, the CDC says nobody needs a mask at first,
That's true. That's
and
true.
then
Then they
and then
changed
we're
their
told to
tune,
wear
right?
them later on, and
Right.
so it is kind of confusing.
So I'd love to hear from the people, like you said, Kent or whatever. If you could just respond back, I'd love to get some input, really, because I'm confused. Why does he choose not to wear a mask? Is it,
Yeah, give us your input, Kent, on the chat.
yeah? What's
And
your? I don't
just
think it's not one of those topics where people say, I haven't thought about it or whatever. People have seemed to have formed an opinion. Yes or no, I've decided I'm not going to wear it. And I get it. I don't like wearing the mask. I get it. It fogs up my glasses.
claustrophobic,
It's
right? It's claustrophobic
claustrophobic. I can't
sometimes.
see my face. I can't see you talk. I get that it's not comfortable.
Yeah, but I like it when I have my sunglasses on.
Oh,
Like,
well, yeah, then you look kind of cool.
yeah, and then I have my Walking Dead mask. Have you
Do you
seen?
see? Yeah,
I have a
I
Walking
think I
Dead.
said that. Why can't we make this a fun thing? If we've got to do this for a while, if we're going to do this for a while, Why can't we turn it into a fun exercise here?
Yeah. Quinn says, "Good morning, doctor. We're definitely wearing masks." She's from the public health department, by the way,
Ah,
nurse online.
well,
Sherry
and
says,
what do you think, Quinn? Again, I'm not trying to shame anybody, Kent. I'd really, really appreciate your point of view here on this because I don't get it. But maybe again, because I'm coming from a different point of view, I'm trying to understand those that don't want to wear a mask. I'll throw another match onto the fire here today, and
yeah,
this can be. I tend to be more of a liberal, but this can be a liberal disease these days, where we don't, left and right, we don't trust vaccines. One third of
ooh,
Americans they surveyed over the one survey, I said one third of the Americans said if you come out with a vaccine tomorrow, I'm not going to take it.
I'm curious what our audience thinks about vaccines.
Yeah,
Okay, guys, do would you trust a vaccine if it came out? Yes or no?
yeah,
Uh,
and why?
and why? Okay, Kent says, I think we cross-contaminate them every time we take it on and off. I
Okay,
do wear it in the grocery stores or where required. I
okay.
believe in herd immunity. Yes, yes. We do cross-contaminate them. That's a good point, Ken.
So talk
And it
about that a
depends on
little
how
bit.
you hold your mask.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, I should go and get a mask and put it on, and I'll show you
Let's do
how
that.
to
That would be
actually do
very
it.
helpful because that is a point. I sometimes wonder,
Yeah.
am I
Let
just
me go
going through?
grab a mask real quick. Sherry says she'll never take a vaccine. Others are still kind of wondering about vaccines. But let me go get a mask, and I'll show you how to actually put it on, take it off, and all that. Does that sound
Perfect.
good?
That sounds good. While you're doing
Great.
that, we'll continue the conversation here, guys. I really do appreciate this forum because we don't have many places that we can talk about these issues. And I mean talk, not scream, not yell. I'm not trying to belittle anybody. I'm sharing my concerns and my frustrations, and I hope that others will do the same. Vaccines are an interesting question. My sister-in-law, who is one of the most liberal people I know in the world, an ardent vegan, all this stuff, she's completely against vaccines. She's horrified. She buys into the idea, right or wrong, that vaccines can lead to autism. Same thing Jenny McCarthy and other celebrities have put forth. And she's just horrified by anybody. We had our grandson vaccinated to go to school, and she was horrified. And so she'd be one of those that would say, I don't trust vaccines, and I don't think I would take one here. So Dr.
Yeah.
Trin's back with his mask here. I was just sharing my own personal story of I have a very extremely liberal sister-in-law, radically vegan, and she doesn't believe in vaccines at all. She's like Jenny McCarthy and other celebrities, so she would not take a vaccine, any vaccine.
Right, right. As a matter of fact, I mean, we have the flu vaccine, and less than 50% of Americans actually take it every year.
I'm ashamed to say that until this year, I never did. I poo-pooed it. I said, it's not that effective. It's putting a live disease in my body. I'm not sure I want to do this. And but this year I woke up and I thought, what am I, 5?
Right. This, Christine, this is a N95 mask.
And to describe what this, we've all learned this term now. I never knew this term until a couple months ago. N95.
Okay, guys, type into the chat box. What does N95 mean to you? Type in the chat box. What does N95 mean to you?
It meant nothing up to 2 months ago, but now I know it's the term of the
What does that
best
mean to you?
mask.
What does it do that is N95 mask?
And it's no good if it's an N94 or an N92. I don't know how many different grades there are of masks here, but
Yeah. So it kind of goes like this.
that's a
So,
good. That one sits more snugly, if that's a
uh-huh.
correct word. Snugger, more snugly
Imagine if
than.
imagine if we actually wore a mask around the flu season.
Yeah,
What will happen to the flu?
it, phew, it would. The flu
Way
would
down,
fly. Yeah, right.
way down. Yes. Yes. Cindy says Jennifer's N95 filters 100%. Actually, it filters 95%. That's why they call it N95.
Oh, duh. Okay. N. I don't know why they have to use the word letter N. I don't know if there's an A95 or a Z95, but
Yeah, it's medical grade. So physicians wear N95 when we're doing procedures in the hospital where we may be exposed to like respiratory droplets,
Hmm.
like intubating, right? Intubating a patient.
That's when you stick a tube
Is
down their
a
throat,
good
right?
opportunity.
Or up their nose.
Or when we're in the ER, and I'm in the ER every week, if there's a patient that is suspicious for possible COVID, N95 masks are pretty much required
Okay.
with that.
Now,
So it's for medical folks.
and what's the right way to put it on and take it off? Because yours seems to fit snugger than mine does.
Yeah. So 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 to take it off, you don't go like this
Mm,
because
you've touched it,
this is the contaminated part, right? So this is what Kent Palmer's talking about.
right?
When oftentimes we're like this, and now our hands is contaminated,
Ah.
right? Does that make sense?
So I've touched, I breathed, now that I've put the contaminant onto the mask and now I touch the mask.
Right now you've touched the mask, right? And so if you're in front of a patient, you're like, and they're coughing, right?
Hmm.
And if they're coughing and all their stuff is here,
Hmm.
when you take it off, it's a really careful way to taking it off, where you don't want to touch this part when you're taking it off,
Okay.
because this is the contaminated part. So if you really want to do this right, don't take it off by touching the front of the mask. So that's Ken's point, right?
Okay.
And it's a really good point. By the way, I read somewhere lately that there were two runners, two kids who were running with masks on, and they died or something like that. They
Hmm.
dropped dead, and there was blame on their mask. I don't know what the actual story was, but
So it restricted their breathing
it
or it
probably
kept,
restricted oxygen, and they were breathing in their carbon dioxide. Is what I think was
ah,
happening. Yeah, Quinn says it filters out less than 0.3 microns um, of all bacteria and mold and things of that sort. Now, have you heard of KN95? The
K and then the letter
KN95.
KN95. No.
Yeah, the term K in front of it, and Sherry Ross is asking this. I think it comes from China. Is the is where it says K.
Does the K mean it's crappy? Doesn't work as good? No, probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, I won't comment on that one. It is, Cindy, it is kind of uncomfortable to wear, but this is a medically grade mask. This here is a non-medical grade mask. This is one that you can kind of sew at
Yeah,
home.
that's the other one I had here.
Let me
This
see
blue
the one you got there, right? Um, so this one goes like, yeah, Amy says, I wear fabric masks outside the N95 for comfort fitting. Yes.
So she wears both. She puts the N95 and
Yeah,
then this one on. Oh,
this is interesting.
yeah.
This one's kind of weird. I bought this, but it kind of goes on. It doesn't fit that well, and you got to pull the strings on it.
Ah. I had the other problem. This is a rubber band one, and it pulls my ears out, so they make
Yeah.
funny looks here. I look like I'm a
But this
hobbit.
is my Walking Dead.
Yeah, cool.
This is like the best mask ever because it's the Walking Dead zombie mask.
See,
I
why can't
have
we just? I thought we'd all have our own funny stories. We'd have our kid's picture on it. We'd have our dog. We'd have some goofy cartoon character. We'd all have our own personal a way to adapt this, and then it would
I
start a
think it's fun.
conversation, and people would laugh, and they say, "Oh, look at that."
Yeah, I'm looking for a mask that has a tongue out emoji.
Yeah, wouldn't that be? Well, you know, I think I've seen one because the old Rolling Stones, the famous
Right.
cover with the big tongue coming out. I think I've seen one of those. I'll have to get you one here.
Yeah, so I need to figure out this little ribbon thing here on this long thing because right now I'm just pulling it
Yeah.
and I'm making a bow.
So let's go back to the other question. So we've talked about mass, and there are those, even on this stream, who have decided masks are of limited value, or I'm not going to wear them in certain situations. Anybody out there who, and we won't call you out on this, I'm not going to shame you on this, but I really would like to know if there's anybody out here who believes that this is all a hoax, this is all overblown, the masks are unnecessary, you know, all that kind of stuff. Only I'll do it if in a restaurant, but I'm not going to do it anywhere else because this is just ridiculous. I've had people come through our studio here. I say, "Where's your mask?" I say, "Oh, it's my car. I never use the darn thing. I keep it because I guess I have to have one, but I not only hate it, I just, ah,
It's uncomfortable. But I can tell you that the countries that masked first
mhm.
when COVID came out are the countries with low death rates.
South Korea's certainly one.
South
And again,
Korea,
uh,
Taiwan,
Taiwan,
Vietnam,
yeah.
Singapore,
Mhm.
Hong Kong, and these are countries that have always masked even before COVID.
Yes. And
Right.
talk about that because I don't want to get, I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but my observation is many Asians, people from Asian countries,
Mhm.
and I don't know if it's because somebody once said because there's high levels of pollution, for example, in Beijing, people have just gotten used to wearing masks because the air is not good to breathe, or they're more crowded together in many of these countries, and particularly in the urban
Mhm.
areas, and they just,
Right.
but they're the ones. If I saw somebody 4 months ago, it was probably an Asian woman, particularly an
Right.
older
With a
Asian
mask.
woman with a mask on. Yeah.
Yes, with a mask. So it's normal in Asia to wear a mask. And these are the same countries that doesn't have a lot of death rates. You know, the United States has 5% of the world's population
Hmm.
and over 30% of COVID deaths. Now, what's wrong with that, guys?
Yeah.
The United States have 5% of the world's population and
Hmm.
over 30% of COVID deaths. What is wrong with those numbers?
Yeah.
There's a mismatch there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me? Why that is?
I can get deeper into it and say that in some countries, they accept authoritarian rule differently than we do. So when everybody gets rounded up or told to do something, they fall in line. There is a Confucian idea that says it's not about me, but it's about the community. You are more willing to self-sacrifice for the greater good. We think of ourselves first and then the greater good. We're Americans, we're extreme individualists, and we hate any sort of authoritarian people telling us what to do. So culturally, we're sort of baked into this
Hmm.
resistance stand here. That's why I thought somebody would come out and make it fun. Celebrities, baseball players, movie stars, politics. It wouldn't be just negative. You got to do this. You want to do this. Oh my goodness! Everybody's wearing a mask. Oh, I got to get one.
Yeah, you want to do it there. And I think the other thing is there's much for, and I don't know why. I think there's much more trust in governments in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Taiwanese people and the Taiwanese government, right? They're like this.
Are they okay?
Uh, Singapore, Hong Kong, the local government. There's much more trust, oftentimes, so they work hand in hand.
Well, there's more trust in
Yeah,
authority. We've come.
authority.
I would say that since Watergate and the continuing crises, then under Democrats, under Republicans, and everybody, we've come to view. Oh my God, I'm a good Irish Catholic. I don't trust the priests anymore. I don't trust the police anymore. I don't trust the politicians anymore. I don't trust anybody. Which goes to the last issue again. We've got, let's say we'll go another 10 minutes here.
Yeah.
I don't understand this whole anti-vaccine thing. I saw somebody again responding to this most recent shocking survey, national survey,
Right.
and they said, wouldn't take it because they rushed it. I wouldn't trust it. Others say I wouldn't take it. It's like the flu, but it's only going to be 50% effective. Others, extreme anti-vaccination. No, I don't trust any of this. It's got mercury in it. It's got something else. It's going to lead to other problems. And so talk about this. I'd love to hear your communal. I think one woman said I wouldn't take the vaccine. That never occurred to me. We're all waiting, praying, oh, please, can you rush this vaccine so we can all get back to work and we can all
So
develop instant herd immunity here.
so it boils down to trust,
Yeah.
right? Um, do you trust the science behind vaccines and vaccinations, or do you distrust pharmaceuticals
Mm-hmm.
making these vaccines for profit,
Mm-hmm. Right.
right? Um, so really, it's a trust issue. Uh, there is no vaccine that's 100% safe.
right?
You know, I mean, you
There's
get a
no drug that's
vaccine, you have
100% safe. You look at the bottom of a drug, you'd never take anything. They all scary
even
side effects.
aspirin, right?
Yeah,
If you look at aspirin or Tylenol, one of the side effects is death,
yeah, right.
right?
Death,
And
death.
so it all boils down to trust. And do you trust the data that that is behind the studies for vaccine? Um, so that is the huge issue, and we know that we don't have a disease today in America called polio
Yeah, right.
because of vaccinations. We know that we have, for the most part, in the United States, eradicated conditions like measles
Smallpox,
because of vaccinations.
right?
Until folks decide not to vaccinate, and then we have these outbreaks.
Yeah, right.
Right? You heard of the outbreak of measles in California and in different locations,
Other
and these
odd diseases, rubella.
rubella, German measles,
Yeah.
right? MMR, right? All the stuff you vaccinate for. Tetanus. Tetanus is not something we see today
Hmm.
because of vaccinations.
Hmm.
So vaccinations have eradicated diseases.
Eradicated, wipe them out. They
Eradicated.
do not exist anymore. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Uh, so it really depends on if you trust in the science behind vaccinations,
So let's
or
stop.
if,
Let's stop right there. Do
yeah,
you trust science? That's what I think is at the deep core. I'm not sure we trust you, the scientists, like we once did. Somebody puts in here. Look at the stream of conversations. They're off on their own debate here in Facebook right now.
I
Somebody
love
somebody threw one in here about GMO, and said basically that I don't want to misquote them, but they said, let's see if I can come up with the exact quote here. Um,
no GMO, no food. Not all GMO is bad,
yeah,
according
there was
to
another one here though. That
the
somebody
GMO debate going on, guys. What do you guys think of GMO? Good or bad?
and
Type in the chat box, guys. GMO, good or bad? What
and
do you
let's define what GMO is: genetically
genetically
modified.
modified, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I go in and I splice little genes so that the plant grows better or it's resistant to bugs and other things
by the
here.
way, why do we have GMO?
I have no idea. I assume to help the farmers because it makes the crop resistant to bugs and other things.
And here's why. I mean, I think the intent behind GMO, right, is this: 100 years ago, let's say we're in 2020.
Right.
Let's say we go back to 1920, right? Year 1920, 100 years ago. How many Americans lived 100 years ago? How many people were in America? Do you know? We have to do like a Google search.
I don't know, but I'd say it's probably less than half. It's probably 100 million.
Maybe 100 million, right?
Yeah.
100 years ago, 100 years ago, there were 100, let's say we assume there was 100 million Americans around. Did we have more farmland 100 years ago, or do we have more farmland today in America?
I don't know that it's not a wash, but my assumption now I'm showing my own bias. I would assume there were more people on the land. The majority of people made their living as farmers. That changed around the late 1800s when people started
Right.
migrating to the cities for the first time. So I would say there was more land under cultivation, perhaps, but maybe it's a swap. Maybe it's just big farms now, and there used to be little farms. Yeah,
So yeah, so you're right. 100 years ago, there was more farmland,
right,
right? Because industry is not in, manufacturing, all that, comparing now.
right,
So there's more farmland 100 years ago, and at the same time, there's less people
right,
100 years ago, right? So, so the farmland we had 100 years ago fed 100 million people.
right,
We have less farm now, and we have 350 million Americans.
right.
How are you going to feed more people with less farm?
Better produce better crops, more output
You
per acre.
genetically modify your crop so
Right.
that it produces more crop faster, at a faster rate, bigger
And
crops.
you lose
So,
less of it to bugs and diseases and other
and,
things like
and
that.
you're right. So genetic modification was required to feed more people with less land, right?
Now
About
that
that.
look
We have,
at the inflammatory. I mean, there's several people saying no. This is all big pharma, big bucks, big. You know, we
right? So think about how do you feed 3 times more people today than 100 years ago with less farm? How do you do that? You can't. You can't unless you do something to your crop, right?
but I don't. You know, now I'll show. I'm trying to be liberal and open minded
Right.
and science based. I have a certain uncomfortableness with something that's genetically modified. That seems like we've opened Pandora's box. Are we going to start having horns grow out of our heads or other sorts of things? I don't know that we've thought through all the implications of that.
Sherry,
That's fear. That's not. I have no facts to base that. That's just gut. You know.
well, Sherry Ross says we just need to eat less.
Well, therein lies
Or
the
Tammy says bring back the farmland, right?
yeah.
So genetic modification allows you to make more crop with less land because we have more people. We have 3 times, the population 100 years ago with less land. How do you feed everyone
So you're just
unless you
saying
do
it's
something
supply and
different?
demand. It's just demand. We had to come up with a way to make more food out of less land.
So the way you do that, the way people did that was they modified their food genetically to make more crop, right?
But the food goes into us. I mean, are they this is going to sound another like a
Right.
conspiracist. Are they modifying? Are they genetically modifying me then?
Yes, yes. Now, I didn't say that that was right, or I didn't say that that was good.
You
I
just
just gave
said
you a reason of why we genetically modified our foods, right? Because we had to make more food with less land to feed more people, right?
and
That
let's
was
be
the
honest.
intent,
Some of it
right?
was profit driven too. So if I can get
Of
more
course, it's
production
profit.
per
Of course,
land, yeah, right,
farming is a business,
right.
right? So it is profit driven, right? Now,
Now let me stop you though.
now
Farming
the
didn't
question,
used to be a business. In the 1800s, farming was for yourself. You sold a little bit of excess, but the principal
yes,
reason you did it was to feed your family.
that's correct. That's correct. And it's like that in many parts of the world now.
Right.
Now, the issue with GMO is this. Yes, we have changed our foods. Yes, we have modified our foods. And yes, we believe there are issues with that as well with potential health, right? Can we prove that? Well, we know that the grain that we have today
Hmm.
looks nothing like the grain we have 50 years ago.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. The grain we have today looks nothing like the grain we have 50 years ago because it's been so genetically modified that it's not the same grain we're eating 50 years ago. And and so what happens is this. Our immune system, which has been with us ever since creation
Ever
for
since the herd
millions of years,
roamed across the plains here. Yeah, exactly.
right? Our immune system has been trained to recognize certain foods,
Hmm.
right? Our immune system's been trained to recognize certain foods. The vegetables we eat, the grains we eat, the rice we eat, and it's been trained and to recognize those foods for millions of years,
Right.
right? For as long as humans have been around through the process of microevolution and all that.
Right.
So what we do is we changed our food with genetic modification. And not only have we changed our foods with genetic modification, we are introducing foods that that innately we have not recognized with other cultures. So lactose, did you know that Asians are very lactose intolerant
I did.
compared to
I
Americans?
did because oddly enough, I have a friend who his brother years and years ago, it was back in the 70s, got the brilliant idea he was going to build Pizza Huts in Thailand. And he lived there, and he saw there were no Pizza Huts, and they're moving to the city. They want to be westernized. He got the Pizza Hut
Right.
franchise. He opened it up. It was a disaster. Everybody couldn't tolerate the cheese. They were completely lactose intolerant as a
So
society. They had
our
no idea.
so our microbiome, the bacteria that lives with us, the genetics that are part of our culture, uh, bec does not recognize necessarily the food from other cultures. So Asians have a higher propensity for lactose intolerance because in Asia they don't drink a lot of cow's milk,
Right.
right? Compared to like the Europeans.
Right.
And
Because they don't have big pastures like areas.
they don't have big pastures.
Right.
So when Asians drink milk, there's a higher propensity for lactose intolerance. So that's what I talk about when I'm talking about our immune system not recognizing other types of foods that may not be part of our culture, or it may not recognize foods that have been, genetically changed significantly, right? Significantly. Um, why is it that gluten insensitivity, right, celiac sprue, is on the rise in the last decade
You
compared to
got me on
50
that
years
one.
ago,
I never even heard of gluten, much less gluten intolerance, until the last couple of years.
right? I mean, you guys on Facebook, why is it that gluten insensitivity and celiac sprue is on the rise over the last decade,
Yeah, I know the answer, but I
over
don't
the,
think they want to
compared
hear
to 50 years ago?
it. You know what the answer is? Because it's an evil plot. There's an evil plot that explains everything.
I'll tell you why, because our food isn't the same 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Our food has changed. We have modified it. We have changed it. Our immune system no longer recognizes it. So
So,
you
so
get
you're not making a very good case for genetically modified food here. You're saying that the more we do this for practical reasons, because we got to feed more people, for profit reasons, because we want to get more out of the yield per each crop and lose less along the way. In that impulse to do both, which are totally understandable, we have modified what we eat and therefore changed. Our bodies haven't adapted. It's going to take generations to adapt to this new
I'm
modified
just
food.
talking about immunology and your immune system. I, I'm not like pro this or anti this. I'm just talking science. If your immune system does not recognize something, it's going to attack it. If your immune system attacks it, it's called gluten insensitivity, guys.
Or
Think about
lactose intolerance or
it.
anything.
Lactose intolerance, right? Any type of food insensitivity, right? Peanut allergies.
Peanut allergies, yeah.
Everyone is allergic to peanuts today. Have you heard of peanut allergies as a huge problem 40, 50 years ago?
Never. Because the peanuts
Why is
aren't
it
the
like
same.
why is it like everyone I talk to is allergic to peanut these
Because
days?
peanuts have changed. Never occurred to me. Because peanuts ain't the same.
Because peanuts ain't the same. We don't recognize it. Anytime you have an allergy, it's simply an immune system that is responding to something that doesn't recognize. That's the definition of an allergy.
Well,
I'm just talking science.
I think then that's how we're going to wrap this up, because that's what's happening. We're having as a political body, and we are reacting negatively to something we've never seen before, this COVID crisis, and we're allergic to it. We're violently not liking this, and we're reacting accordingly here. And as the body politic, we are attacking this information, this something we've never seen before. Well,
Right? And
I'm
so
fascinated by the conversation here. I'm sorry we have to cut this short. We have another show we have to go to, but look at the Facebook. While you and I are talking, there is a storm brewing on Facebook here. We started off saying to mask or not to mask, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate, and now we're into GMO or not GMO. Bring back farming. Somebody said victory gardens. Let's go back to victory gardens. World War II, everybody started a little garden in your own backyard and grow your own food that's not
we're starting
genetically.
a little garden in my backyard.
Are you? There you go.
Yeah,
See,
we went to Home Depot yesterday to buy some what is it? Some
amend
garden
to
soil,
change
some garden
to
soil.
genetically change the soil. Yes, exactly.
We're starting a little garden. Yeah, yeah. There'll be no THC in the backyard,
Well, I'll
but
give you another
hopefully
interesting
some
thing that
fruit.
I learned when I first moved into. I live in a suburban home down in, basically near Ladera, Rancho Santa Margarita, the south part of the county here. and I couldn't get anything to grow in my front yard. The grass would die, everything would die. So I went to the water district, had a thing. They said, you don't realize when they built all these tract homes, they came in with bulldozers and took the topsoil off so they could flatten everything. So and then they put sod in there knowing it won't last for very long, but it looks pretty until they sell the house. And then the sod dies because you've taken the rich soil and you're just down to the clay and the hard soil underneath it. So amend and all that is just there to try and break down that hard soil that doesn't grow anything and try and turn it back into the rich topsoil that you once removed to build all these suburban tracts quickly and easily.
Yeah. Tower gardens are great too. I want to get a tower garden.
Yeah, to go up instead. So you've opened up a couple future topics here. I'd love to talk about GMO in greater detail. Never thought about that one. I'd love to talk about old-fashioned gardening over at the Great Park. There are places that you can go rent a little gardening plot if you can't do it at your own house.
You can rent a garden?
You don't sort of rent it. I don't know if it's a price or if it's just a volunteer, but there are sections. Over in Ladera, there's a community garden that you can get your own little section and grow it, and it's amazing what people are doing there. And they're taking out of this little tiny plot, they tend to go up so they can get more growth out of it. We had a guest on one of our shows that said urban gardening is back, and they're growing things in warehouses, and they're doing them by growing them up with controlled lighting, so they don't need lots of acreage anymore. You just need a vertical space, and you can grow things up. And
what do you call that type of garden where underneath there's like water and goldfishes, where the goldfishes eat the bottom of it, of the...
Yes, there is something, right?
Call that?
I don't know. We'll have to. So there's a whole gardening itself is, that whole return, and that brings in the we had some people on about restaurants, the whole heirloom heirloom varietals, things that your grandmother once knew, varieties of tomatoes that only grew in this neighborhood that had adapted to our soil and it had been grown here, that have long since been wiped out, except in rare little, since they find the seeds and they bring these things back to life, like Jurassic Park, back from the dead. And they bring these little...
Oh, okay, the Facebook guy says hydroponic.
Hydroponics.
Hydroponic. Yes. So you have top layer, and then there's water at the bottom and goldfishes. And it's like its own ecosystem.
Right.
I would love to create a hydroponic.
Well, you know what but that's a code. Everything has a code to it now. That's a code word for marijuana. That's how marijuana was grown for years, with hydroponics.
Serious?
Yeah, in basements and warehouses and stuff. So anytime you see a hydroponic store, I know they're going to scream at me, but a lot of it was marijuana cultivation here. Yeah.
Are you talking from experience, Paul?
How's
your basement looking?
I'll leave it right there. But fascinating how we've opened up the door just with a little sign to mask or not to mask, to vaccinate or led to the vaccine, led to GMO, led to farming. There is a hunger to get back to what was, and I'm sorry to say, doctor, as a clinical researcher, there is a growing distrust for the science-based approach in life here. We're not sure. We're not sure we like it or believe it anymore here. All right, thank you. Join us every week and to write us in some topics. I'd love to talk about all these things in greater detail, and I appreciate your involvement today, folks, because we need to talk these things through. To find
next Thursday, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Thanks so much for tuning in here.
See you guys later. Take care. See you next Thursday, 8 o'clock.
Well, we opened the door on this one here today. Health Talks with Dr. Trinh, where we try and not debate, but discuss. Get it out in the open. Let's talk about it. Where we're at, what we fear, and why. So much misinformation floating around, so much doubt and fear and distrust. Let's see if we can't talk this through together. Health Talks with Dr. Trinh, each Thursday, right here in Orange County's only community radio station, octalkradio.net.